why the results are not like my expectations, why everything that happens is different from your thoughts. The scenario is always different. It's assumptions or emotions. You have to be realistic. You will realize that realistic thinking will add to your life. In this video, employ realistic thinking from How Successful People Think book by the great author, speaker, and pastor John C. Maxwell. I promise you great pleasure, knowledge, and benefit. With Mindset Story, would a gold egg each day make you happy? In the end. Welcome to ReadBook Channel, a channel that will help you learn skills from authors and speakers, international personalities, to step towards success and wealth in your life. If you are interested, honor me by subscribing. Let's get started. Employ realistic thinking. The first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. Max Dupree, Chairman Emeritus of Herman Miller, refers to the process of evaluating a situation or problem objectively and considering the facts and evidence available rather than relying on assumptions or emotions. This approach allows for the identification of potential obstacles and the development of practical solutions. Realistic thinking can also involve setting attainable goals and developing a plan to achieve them. As anyone knows who's been out of school for a few years, there's usually a huge gap between a college education and the reality of the working world. Honestly, early in my career, I went out of my way to avoid too much realistic thinking because I thought it would interfere with my creative thinking. But as I've grown, I've come to realize that realistic thinking adds to my life. Reality check. Reality is the discrepancy between what we desire and what exists. It took me a while to become a realistic thinker, going through stages. Initially, I avoided realistic thinking altogether. Later, I acknowledged its importance and began practicing it occasionally. However, I disliked it as it seemed negative. Whenever possible, I avoided it. Eventually, I realized that realistic thinking was crucial in solving problems and learning from mistakes. Over time, I started thinking realistically even before problems arose and made it a constant habit. Now, I promote realistic thinking among my key leaders and make it a fundamental aspect of our business as it brings stability and security. Why you should recognize the importance of realistic thinking. If you're naturally optimistic like I am, you might not have a strong desire to develop more realistic thinking skills. But developing the capacity for realism in thought won't diminish your belief in others or make it harder for you to recognize and embrace opportunities. It will instead benefit you in different ways. 1. Realistic thinking minimizes downside risk. This type of thinking minimizes downside risk because it allows you to anticipate and plan for potential negative outcomes rather than being caught off guard by them. By considering all possible outcomes, you can make more informed decisions that are less likely to result in negative consequences. 2. Realistic thinking gives you a target and game plan. By setting realistic goals and objectives, you can develop a game plan for how to reach them. Having a target and game plan helps to focus your efforts and resources and provides a roadmap for how to move forward. It also helps to identify potential obstacles and challenges so you can develop strategies to overcome them. Overall, realistic thinking provides a sense of direction and purpose that can help you achieve your goals. I've known business folks that didn't think realistically. The good news is that they were quite upbeat and had a lot of hope for their company. The bad news is that hoping is not a plan because it forces people to face reality. Realistic thinking promotes excellence in leadership and management. They start by defining their goal and creating a strategy to achieve it. Realistic thinking encourages people to start simplifying practices and procedures, which boosts productivity. Actually, there aren't many crucial business decisions. Realistic decision makers are aware of the distinction between critical decisions and those that are merely required in day-to-day operations. The choices that count are those that directly advance your goal. James Allen was right when he wrote, "Until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. 3. Realistic thinking is a catalyst for change. Those who rely solely on hope to achieve success often do not prioritize making changes. When one only has hope, they may believe that success is out of their control and dependent on luck or chance. However, realistic thinking can change this mindset by making individuals acknowledge the need for change when facing reality. It is important to note that change alone does not guarantee growth, but growth cannot occur without change. 4. Realistic thinking provides security. Anytime you have thought through the worst that can happen and you have developed contingency plans to meet it, you become more confident and secure. It's reassuring to know that you are unlikely to be surprised. Disappointment is the difference between expectations and reality. Realistic thinking minimizes the difference between the two. For some people, disappointment can be a temporary setback that they can easily move on from, while for others it can be a more difficult and prolonged experience. It's important to note that disappointment can be a valuable learning experience, as it can help to identify areas where one's expectations were unrealistic or where one's approach to achieving a goal was flawed. It can also serve as motivation to try again or to approach a situation differently in the future. Dealing with disappointment is personal. Some people might find comfort in talking about their feelings with friends or family. Others might find solace in engaging in hobbies or exercise, and others might find it helpful to seek out professional counseling. 5. Realistic thinking gives you credibility. Thinking realistically encourages others to support the leader and his or her vision. Leaders who are frequently taken by surprise by the unexpected quickly lose the respect of their followers. On the other hand, managers who make plans and think realistically put their teams in a winning position. Because of this, their people have faith in them. Before laying out their vision, the finest leaders pose sensible questions. They ponder questions like, is it possible? Does this dream include everyone or just a few? Have I identified and articulated the areas that will make this dream difficult to achieve? When one is perceived as having realistic thinking, it can give them credibility in a number of ways. Firstly, when one is able to think realistically, they can be seen as rational and logical, and this can lead to people having more trust and confidence in their abilities and judgment. Secondly, realistic thinking can help one to make informed and sound decisions, which can lead to better outcomes and results. When one is seen as having a track record of making good decisions, it can build their credibility in the eyes of others. Thirdly, realistic thinking can help to minimize uncertainty and unpredictability in a situation. This can help to mitigate risk and increase predictability, which can be seen as a sign of credibility. Lastly, when one is able to think realistically, they can be seen as someone who is able to take control of a situation, which can be viewed as a sign of credibility. Overall, realistic thinking can give one credibility by being seen as rational, logical, able to make informed decisions, minimize uncertainty, and able to take control of a situation. 6. Realistic thinking provides a foundation to build on. Thomas Edison observed, "The value of a good idea is in using it." The bottom line on realistic thinking is that it helps you to make an idea usable by taking away the wish factor. Most ideas and efforts don't accomplish their intended results because they rely too much on what we wish rather than what is. You can't build a house in midair. It needs a solid foundation. Ideas and plans are the same. They need something concrete on which to build. Realistic thinking provides that solid foundation. 7. Realistic thinking is a friend to those in trouble. If creativity is what you would do if you were unafraid of the possibility of failure, then reality is dealing with failure if it does happen. Realistic thinking gives you something concrete to fall back on during times of trouble, which can be very reassuring. Certainty in the midst of uncertainty brings stability. It provides a sense of stability and reassurance during times of trouble, allowing one to fall back on a solid plan or strategy. In contrast, creativity often involves taking risks and not being afraid of the possibility of failure. Realistic thinking complements creativity by providing a solid foundation to handle the reality of failure when it occurs. It brings certainty to uncertain situations. 8. Realistic thinking brings the dream to fruition. British novelist John Galsworthy wrote, "Idealism increases in direct proportion to one's distance from the problem. If you don't get close enough to a problem, you can't tackle it. If you don't take a realistic look at your dream, and what it will take to accomplish it, you will never achieve it. Realistic thinking helps to pave the way for bringing any dream to fruition. When combined with the ability to dream and envision a desired outcome, realistic thinking can help to bring a dream to fruition. Realistic thinking allows one to understand the feasibility of a dream or goal and what steps are necessary to achieve it. This can help to identify any roadblocks or challenges that might need to be overcome and to develop a plan to address them. It can help to set realistic and achievable milestones that can be used to measure progress towards a dream or goal. This can help to keep the dream or goal on track and to make any necessary adjustments along the way. Overall, realistic thinking can bring a dream to fruition by allowing one to understand the feasibility of a dream, setting realistic and achievable milestones, minimizing uncertainty, and taking control of a situation. How to recognize the importance of realistic thinking? Because I'm naturally optimistic rather than realistic, I've had to take concrete steps to improve my thinking in this area. Here are 5 things I do to improve my realistic thinking. 1. Develop an appreciation for truth. I had to learn to appreciate realistic thinking before I could start to think realistically, and that entails developing the ability to see and appreciate truth. Harry S. Truman, the president, once quipped, "I never give him hell. They think it's hell because I'm just telling them the truth." That's how a lot of people respond to the truth. People often overstate their accomplishments and downplay their flaws or shortcomings. They operate in accordance with Ruckert's law, persuading themselves that nothing is too minor to be exaggerated. Winston Churchill once said, "Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing has happened," and that might unfortunately be said of many people today. More recently, television journalist Ted Koppel observed, "Our society finds truth too strong a medicine to digest undiluted. In its purest form, truth is not a polite tap on the shoulder. It is a howling reproach. In other words, the truth will set you free, but first it will make you angry if you want to become a realistic thinker. However, you need to get comfortable dealing with the truth and face up to it. 2. Do your homework. Doing your homework is the first step in the realistic thinking process. Get the facts first, of course. When you approach a problem, strip yourself of preconceived opinions and prejudice, assemble and learn the facts of the situation. Make the decision which seems to you to be the most honest, and then stick to it," said Chester Bowles, a former governor, congressman, and ambassador. No matter how strong your reasoning is, it won't matter if it is founded on false information or presumptions. Lack of data or inaccurate information impairs your ability to think clearly. Additionally, you can research what other people have done in comparable situations. Keep in mind that solid thinking is more important than innovative thought. Why not learn all that you can from good thinkers who have faced similar situations in the past? Some of my best thinking has been done by others. 3. Think through the pros and cons. It is a common method used in problem solving and decision making. It involves listing out the potential positive and negative outcomes and considering which outweighs the other before making a decision. There's nothing like taking the time to really examine the pros and cons of an issue to give you a strong dose of reality. It rarely comes down to simply choosing the course of action with the greatest number of pros, because all pros and cons do not carry equal weight. But that's not the value of the exercise anyway. Rather, it helps you to dig into the facts, examine an issue from many angles, and really count the cost of a possible course of action. 4. Picture the worst-case scenario. The essence of realistic thinking is discovering, picturing, and examining the worst-case scenario. Ask yourself questions such as, what if sales fall short of projections? What if revenue hits rock bottom? Not an optimist's rock bottom, but real rock bottom. What if we don't win the account? What if the client doesn't pay us? What if we have to do the job short-handed? What if our best player gets sick? What if all the colleges reject my application? What if the market goes belly up? What if the volunteers quit? What if nobody shows up? You get the idea. The point is that you need to think about worst-case possibilities, whether you are running a business, leading a department, pastoring a church, coaching a team, or planning your personal finances. Your goal isn't to be negative or to expect the worst, just to be ready for it in case it happens. That way, you give yourself the best chance for a positive result, no matter what. If you picture the worst case and examine it honestly, then you really have experienced a reality check. You're ready for anything. As you do that, take the advice of Charles Hall. who advised, deliberate with caution, but act with decision, and yield with graciousness or oppose with firmness. 5. Align your thinking with your resources. One of the keys to maximizing realistic thinking is aligning your resources with your objectives. Looking at pros and cons and examining worst-case scenarios will make you aware of any gaps between what you desire and what really is. Once you know what those gaps are, you can use your resources to fill them. After all, that's what resources are for. Super Bowl, Superdome, Super Security. Our country received lessons in realistic thinking following the tragedy of September 11, 2001. The destruction of the World Trade Center buildings in New York City far surpassed any worst-case scenarios that anyone might have envisioned. In the wake of that event, we now find that we don't have the luxury of avoiding or neglecting realistic thinking. I was reminded of that on Sunday, February 3, 2002, when I attended the Super Bowl in New Orleans, Louisiana. I had been to the big game twice before to root for the home team, first San Diego and later Atlanta, and had seen both teams lose. But I had never been to a game like this. The occasion had been designated a national security special event. That meant that the U.S. Secret Service would be overseeing it, military personnel would work with local law enforcement, and security would be of the highest caliber. The Secret Service brought in several hundred agents and secured the area. In preparation for the game, access to the Superdome was highly restricted, with intensified screening. Officials blocked off roads, closed the nearby interstate, and designated the area a no-fly zone. We arrived early at the Dome. Officials suggested fans arrive up to 5 hours ahead of game time, and we immediately saw evidence of the precautionary measures. 8-foot fences surrounded the whole area, and concrete barriers prevented unauthorized vehicles from getting close to the building. We could see sharpshooters positioned at various locations, including on the roof of some adjacent buildings. When we reached a gate, police officers and security personnel patted us down and examined everyone's belongings. After that, they directed us to go through metal detectors. Only then did they allow us into the stadium. That's all well and good, you may be saying, but what would have happened had there been a terrorist attack? The Secret Service had that covered too, because they had prepared for the worst-case scenario. Evacuation plans had been put into place, and personnel at the Superdome had been drilled to make sure everyone knew what to do in case of an emergency. New Orleans Mayor Mark Morial said the day before the Super Bowl, "We want to send a message to all visitors that New Orleans is going to be the safest place in America." We got the message. We didn't feel the least bit worried. That's what happens when leaders recognize the importance of realistic thinking. Story part. Do you really know what would make you happy? Whatever it is, cherish every moment of it if you found it, and be careful when wanting more to not lose what you already have. There was once a small town where everyone knew each other, and everyone who lived in the town was very happy except for one couple. The couple was known to be lazy, very greedy, and never satisfied with anything. If it was sunny, they complained about the heat. If it was cold and it rained, they would complain of living in a place where they could not even leave the house. The couple didn't care about anything or anyone except gold and what they had. People in the town always tried to help them, but nothing ever seemed good enough for the couple. People in the town were becoming frustrated with the couple, so finally one day one of the townsfolk asked the couple, "What would make you happy? What can we do to help you?" The couple smiled back and said, "Well, we will be happy when we will be the richest people in the town." After that, the townspeople decided to not bother with the couple anymore. One day, a playful sprite was passing by this small town and heard about the couple. The sprite couldn't believe what it had heard, so it decided to find out for itself if everything that was said about them was true. So one afternoon, when the husband was on his way home through the forest, the sprite appeared to him and said, "Hello, are you well? You look tired and sad. Is there anything that I can do to make you happy?" The man, somewhat frightened by the presence of the sprite, replied, "No, I'm not sick or tired, and I'm not hungry either. I'm just sad because my wife and I are poor and we cannot have the things we want and need." Then the sprite replied, "I don't understand. If you are not hungry or cold or ill, and you have a loved one by your side, then you are not poor." But the man insisted, "Yes, I am. A man who has no gold is poor." The sprite laughed, "You're mistaken, my friend. I have known many people who had so much gold that they couldn't possibly spend it all, but they lacked time to do what would really make them happy. For example, they didn't take the time to enjoy their favorite food and drink no matter how much they have paid for it, or they didn't take the time to be be with their loved ones, and when they grew old they had no memories with them. They were not able to enjoy anything that was around them because they always wanted more and never stopped to enjoy what they had. "I don't believe you," said the man, and insisted. "Being poor means that you do not have gold, and not like you said time. I have time, but I don't have gold. And since I do not have gold, I cannot be happy." The sprite felt sorry for the man. "I want to help you find happiness as you imagine it. I will give you a chicken that will lay a golden egg every day. You just have to wait until it lays one and then collect it. It will not take you long to have all the gold you have always wanted, and you and your wife will be happy. But remember, you only get one egg per day." Suddenly a chicken came clucking happily from the bush where the sprite came before. The man, shocked by everything that had just happened, took the chicken and put it quickly under his arm and ran to his home. The sprite was happy as its test was finally underway. As soon as the husband entered his home, he showed the chicken to his wife and told her everything that had happened. The husband and wife stayed up all night waiting for the chicken to lay the golden egg. Early in the morning, the hen began to cluck, and shortly after, a huge, bright golden egg appeared beneath it. When they saw the egg, the couple became radiant, but a few minutes later the woman commented, "What a bummer, we'll have to wait until tomorrow to have another golden egg." To which the husband replied, "It will take many weeks before we have enough eggs to be the richest in town. That must be why the sprite laughed when it gave me the chicken." After a week passed, and the couple gained one egg each day, the woman remembered, "I once heard that chickens already have all the eggs they will lay inside them. If this is true, why don't we just kill the chicken and take all the golden eggs at once? We are a lot smarter than the sprite thinks." The man agreed, and without hesitation, they took the poor hen and opened it so they could take out all the eggs. But when they did so, there were no eggs to be found. Suddenly, the couple heard a knock on the door. The man opened the door, and once again there was the sprite in front of him. "I gave you what you said would make you happy, but because of your greed, look what you have done with it. Gold is not the thing that will make you happy, my dear friend. Do not waste your time looking for gold, as you will end up without both time and gold," said the sprite, turned around, and left the town. Moral of the story: greed can prevent you from finding happiness. What you might think that will make you happy might bring you some joy, but not happiness. Happiness is a state of mind, while joy is something you feel. Be mindful of the difference. Patience will get you far. Be patient with your situation and learn from it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you will become rich one day, and I promise to help you and give you everything you need to be able to walk the path of wealth. But be ready.